Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Campolo, and this is the first of our new weekly quick streams that we'll be doing here at QuickNode. I am a developer advocate at QuickNode, and I am really excited to do this because I've been doing lots of live streams and things like this for a while, but this is going to be my first one now for QuickNode, which is a fairly new position for me. I've been here for about a month and a week or so. So this is going to be kind of like the first of a long series. This is just going to be me today, but we'll have guests as well. I think next week we're going to have Ben Holmes from the Astro team with us. So that'll be really fun. And today we're going to be learning about Avalanche and how to connect to it with QuickNode, because this week we launch our Avalanche support. And a little context for anyone who doesn't know anything about QuickNode or this whole Web3 blockchain world. There's various different blockchains, some of which are fairly well known, like Ethereum. A lot of people know that one. And then there's other up and coming ones like Avalanche or Solana. And we at QuickNode really believe in the multi-chain future. We think that giving developers the ability to work with whichever chains they want and then connect them all together is what is going to enable us to really grow this ecosystem. So the Avalanche is a really interesting project because it is based on a lot of academic research from Cornell, and it is meant to be faster, cheaper, and more environmentally conscious than things like Ethereum, which use proof of work. So it has its own new consensus algorithms that are part of the Snow family, and they have a really interesting architecture with three separate chains that are all kind of connected to each other to create one larger one. So today we're going to be looking at how to connect to the C chain, which is for smart contracts. So a smart contract is just some code that lives on the blockchain that we can query and execute commands and methods and things like that. So it's going to be a very simple exercise. We're just going to be deploying like a hello world smart contract. It just says hello back, and then you can set a different hello message. So should be good for anyone who's never done any of this Web3 stuff, because it is different from Web 2. I came from the Web 2 world before doing all this and was really familiar with things like React and other front-end kind of JavaScript libraries and Node and all that. So we'll be using Hardhat, which is a Node development environment, and then that will be deploying a smart contract, which will then be queried from a React front end. So I think that's enough kind of preamble. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and then we can get going. Okay, so if we check out our homepage here, we have different places for all of our chains here. So we see we got 13 right now, and Avalanche is the newest one. And this is a little bit of information about it. There is the mainnet, and then there's the testnet Fuji. Fuji is what we'll be working with today. And then they have some add-ons, archive mode, trace mode, and then the Avalanche client that is supported. Now, if we then look at the documentation here, this is the RPC overview. And so these are how we connect our methods to, these are the methods that let us access the blockchain. So we see over here, we got a bunch of different methods, and this is not something we have to worry too much about because, as I said, we're doing just a simple little hello world application. And then here we have a blog post that kind of announces this new partnership. So feel free to give this a look if you want to check that out. And then I will be going off of a blog post here that I've written called A First Look at Avalanche. And so see here, Avalanche is an open source proof of stake blockchain with smart contract functionality that uses the Snow family of consensus protocols. And then we have a section for configuring our MetaMask wallet, creating our project, deploying our Avalanche node, and then creating our React app. So if we, and this gives you a little information about the different chains, and we'll be working with the contract chain specifically. There's a nice little diagram for you. And then this link here is not going to go anywhere yet because we are going to build, this is the test. This is what we will eventually build. Okay, so let's first configure our wallet. So if we go to MetaMask here, if you just have a, that's what this man view. So if you just kind of import it and you have a new blank wallet, you'll only see the Ethereum mainnet, and we need to attach we need to give the information for the RPC. So if we check out here, we're going to go to add a network. And we have 5 pieces of information we need to add. So there's the network name. And so this is for Fuji. Then there's the RPC URL. And we have a couple extra things here, which are actually specifying the chain. And we'll talk about that more once we check out our QuickNode endpoint. And then we got our chain ID, and then the cryptocurrency symbol, which is AVAX. And then the Explorer. This is like Etherscan, if you know what that is. And then once we save that, then we see the little logo changes to the Avalanche logo. Now, we're not going to use this for this example, but let's go ahead and include the actual Avalanche mainnet as well. So let's add this, and then RPC URL, chain ID, currency symbol, and then Explorer. Okay, so now that we got that set up, we need to actually get some funds into our wallet. And the way we do that is with the Fuji testnet faucet. So if you've ever used like a Ropsten faucet or something like that, this is a similar idea. So we're going to copy our address, include it here, let them know that we are not a robot. Car. And I think that's all the cars. Great. And then request 10 AVAX. And that may take a second for that to actually go through, but as soon as that goes through, we will see it appear in our wallet over here. And there we go. There is our 10 AVAX. Okay, so now we got funds in our wallet. So that is all good. Now we're going to actually create our project. Now we're going to be using Vite to create a React boilerplate project. I'm going to copy this here. And this is just going to generate a boilerplate React app for us. And then we're going to add our dependencies. Now, our dependencies are going to include .env. This will let us use environment variables for things like our endpoint and our private key. And this is really important that you use environment variables and then make sure not to commit those. So we'll also be adding this. We'll be creating a .env file and then adding it to the gitignore. So we have .env, we have Hardhat, which is for it's basically our development environment. That's what's going to give us the tooling to deploy the contract. Ethers is a library that gives like a JavaScript abstraction on top of blockchain, and specifically Ethereum, but it can also be used for Avalanche, because Avalanche, the C chain, is essentially equivalent to something like Ethereum and writing smart contracts. We're using Solidity. We're doing all the same things that we would do if we were interacting with the Ethereum blockchain. And then the Hardhat Ethers, which is just another library that kind of integrates the two together. So we're going to add all those dependencies. Now we're going to create 2 folders, one for our contract and then one for our deployment script. And the contract is going to be our Solidity hello world file. And then our script will be deploy.js. And then we'll also have a Hardhat configuration file as well. Now this is going to create our .env file with a couple different environment variables, QuickNode URL, private key, and then contract address. This is prefixed with Vite underscore because that is what's going to let Vite know we want to expose this to our front-end client. And then this will add that .env to our gitignore. So when we create a Git repo and push this up, it will not include our private keys. Okay, so now we got our project set up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to include our smart contract. Now for our smart contract, if we want to verify this worked before we start getting involved with all the hard hat stuff, we can go to the Remix IDE, and this will be a nice little sanity check just to make sure that this works for us. So we can create a contract here and call it Hello World SOL. Save that. Over here, we want to make sure this matches our Solidity version, and then we'll compile it. Once we've compiled it, then we can actually deploy it. And when we deploy it, we want to include a message. That's going to be the message that will go along with the contract. So let's say hello from QuickStreams deploy, and then here's our deployed contract. And we can see the message by clicking hello here. And there's our message, hello from QuickStream. And if I want to say hello from the stream, set that and hit hello, and then we see it's changed. So this is our basic read-write kind of functionality. And if we just look a little bit, what we have here, what we're doing is we're first declaring our contract, which is called hello world. We then have a string, which is hello message, a constructor, which is going to pass in basic parameter. So if we have, so when it takes a string, and then whatever string we feed it, we'll set it to hello message, and then also console log it at the same time. So if you look over here, you can see there's console logs over here. And then we have two functions. There's the hello function, which just returns the hello message. And then there's the set hello function, which will take a parameter and then set whatever the input is to the hello message. So that's our whole contract. Now, the next thing is going to be our deployment script. Our deployment script is going to have a get contract factory. So what this does is you feed it the name of your contract, which is hello world, and then we set that to a variable hello world factory. Then we await it and then use the .deploy and feed it the hello message. So that's the same thing that we did over here, or over here. When you deploy it, you can deploy it with a message, so it can set something. Otherwise, if you wanted to, you could start by setting this to something, but this is going to just let us set it as we deploy it. And then we have the console log, our contract address. So when we actually deploy it, it'll just give us back our address, and then we'll feed that back into our project. And then also console log the signer for the contract. Let's go ahead and save that. Now we've got our Hardhat configuration. And these are the only three files we're going to need to get our smart contract deployed. So it's a very small amount of code if you think about it, which is really nice because this stuff can be pretty complicated. So it's great there's really built out developer tooling, and that makes this really easy. We set the Solidity version and then the path for the artifacts. The reason why we specify this is because we want the artifacts to end up inside of our React application instead of just in our whole root project. Then we set the network. The network is going to be Fuji. Then there'll be a URL, account, and chain ID. Now this is where we have to go grab some private information and put it in our .env file. So I already have a QuickNode endpoint set up. And we're going to do, let's see, which one is it on? That's a good question. Let's try this one. Yeah, got it right. Okay, so this is going to be our endpoint. And if we went through the process of creating one, we would select Avalanche here, Fuji testnet, and then you can set it up like so. There is a fee for it, but if you sign up, you get a 7-day free trial. So you can play around with it and then just cancel it afterwards if you just want to kind of get a feel for it. And then once you actually have it deployed, you will have an HTTP provider with the endpoint. Now, I'm not going to show everything because at the end it has a private key associated with it. And that's what so we're going to grab this whole thing, and then we're also going to include a little information at the end. So when we put it in there, we want to make sure to include this extbcc rpc at the end of the endpoint, and that's what lets it know that we want to go to the C chain specifically. And then you'll also want to grab your private key. So if we look at here in account, we can check out our account details, and then you'll input your password, and then I'll give you back your private key. So I'm going to hop off stream. Okay. Now we've got that set up. We're going to run yarn hardhat compile. This is going to take our smart contract and compile it into an application binary interface, I believe, ABI. And that's how we're actually going to interact with the contract. Now we're going to run yarn hardhat run scripts /deploy.js. And then we're going to pass a network flag and specify that we're deploying this to the Fuji network. So hopefully that all goes according to plan, and then we'll get our contract. Great. So now we got that. We're going to include that in our .env as well. Let me hop off one more time to do that. So save that there. That. And then share screen again. Okay. And then you can also check out on Snowtrace. This is like Etherscan. So if you just put that there, you can now see this contract that has been deployed. So 40 seconds ago, contract creation, and you can check out details about the contract. And as you see, I've run through this a couple times already. And now we got our contract deployed. We can start interacting with it with our React application. So let's go ahead and copy this whole thing here and go to app.jsx. And then this is just some default styling we'll include in our HTML. And once we got that, to actually start our development server, we'll run yarn dev. And then this will kick off our server on localhost 3000. Open that up, and here is our little project. So let's take a look at the code actually and see what's going on here. So we have a contract address, which is being set to our environment variable, and we're importing the Hello World contract from the artifacts folder. And this is what I was saying. We had to specify this to go into the SRC folder. And then we are doing a use state and having a hello and then set hello value. So this is a React ism. It's just a way that we can basically set the state if we want to change it. So we will request the Ethereum, or basically just request to see what the provider is. So this is to check for MetaMask. And then that sets the provider. And then we feed in the contract information, which includes the contract address, the application binary interface, and then the provider. And then once you've got all that, you can call the hello function and then set it to this data object. And then that data object we set to our hello state variable and then display it here. Now, if we open up this here and we click that, then we see hello from AJC Web Dev and our contract address. So that's great. So we got our contract set up. And the next thing we want to do is we want to give ourselves the ability to change this. Now we have a function here, which is going to be set hello. For this, it's doing a similar thing, but it's also now we need to sign the transaction. So when we try and do this now, it's going to have the MetaMask wallet pop up and say, hey, you need to sign this. And then we're going to include this. So this is going to give us an input that will set the hello state. And then when we click it, it will run the set hello function that we created here. So with all of that set up, we can change this to hello from stream. Hello, and we see this little one pops up. So it's going to say, hey, your account is. And so first we got to connect the account. So let's do that. Hold on. Let's connect. So now we're connected. Let's try that again. Okay, and confirm transaction. And then this will take a second to verify. So we'll see here it says pending. And once it is no longer pending, then we will see the message appear in the console. All right, and there is our new greeting. So we've got our contract set up. We've got our buttons and inputs in our React app. And this is a pretty crude way of doing this because every time you kind of like change this, it's changed in here. And there's a cleaner ways to do this, but just for the sake of this demo, this is a nice, easy way to see what is going on. And now we got all of that, we can actually deploy this to the internet as well. And if you think about the things that we needed our private key and endpoint for, we're basically just deploying the smart contract. And now the smart contract is out there in the world. That's the only information we really need for our application to continue functioning and living on. So we're going to create a netlify.toml. And this is going to allow us to give our build steps. So what this is going to do is it's going to set the build command to yarn build, and then the publish directory to dist. So this is going to build a static site that is then going to be pushed up to Netlify, and then it will give us back a URL. Now we're going to initialize our Git repository. So we'll do init, and then make sure that your .env is not lit up. That's good. We'll add that. Commit, and just to make sure this doesn't give me, see what happens. I think this should work. Okay. Now that will push us up, and this is using the GitHub CLI. You could also do this just by going to repo.new and create it from the UI. And if we go visit this here, you can see this was just pushed up 24 seconds ago. All right. So now we got that going. We're going to go to netlify.com. Wait, that is, don't want to be in Brave. And then log in. We're going to import an existing project, connect to GitHub, and then search for that Avalanche repo. Now we have our build command and publish directory already set up. And then if we go to show advanced and new variable, this is where we can include our contract address. So we want to make sure that we have feet_contract_address in all caps. And then we want to grab our contract from back here, which is here. And then deploy site. Now, while that is building, we can go to our domain settings and then add a custom domain or edit. There we go. So we're going to set this to AJC Web Dev Avalanche. And this doesn't take too long to build because Vite is nice and speedy. So we see here, building out. Deployment, and it's live. So let's check out our site here. Okay, a moment of truth. Click this. Hello from the stream. So you see it says the same thing that it said after we changed it, not the original message, because it's the same contract that we were working with. So it's always going to be in whatever state you left it in. So now we're going to say hello from Netlify, and it will ask us to verify, make sure to connect and confirm, and that should do it. There it is. Great. This takes a little while to actually go through. Okay, so now this is the whole demo. So we got our smart contracts deployed to the Fuji testnet. We've got a React application with the Ethers library to interact with it. And then we've deployed it to Netlify. So I'll go ahead and grab some of these links. Now we're eventually going to start having some repos that will be kind of like official QuickNode repos. So these links will likely change in the near future and end up on our actual GitHub account. But for now, you can check this out here. And yeah, feel free to check us out on QuickNode.com if you want to see more or if you want to create an account. And then we are on the Twitters as well. And then if you want to find me, you can just go to AJC Web Dev, and that is me. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching, and we'll be coming back next week. I think it will be possibly Wednesday instead of Thursday, but I'm just keep an eye on the QuickNode Twitter, and you can see when that will be coming out. So yeah, thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.